So let's talk about belief. So here in this slide, the evil queen has the belief that she is the fairest of them all. So to believe that claim, to believe it means that she assents to it, or to have an attitude toward it that she thinks it's true. So the evil queen thinks that it's true that she's the fairest of them all. And then the mirror informs her that she's wrong, so she changes her attitude toward this proposition, and she goes, shoot, I'm not the fairest of them all, and she sets out to kill Snow White so that this sentence is true again. So a belief may or may not be true, but to believe it is to think that it is true. So if you think about it for a second, it's impossible to believe something that you think is false or you believe to be false. So if someone offered you $1 million to believe that there was a monkey sitting in front of you right now, try as hard as you could, you cannot make yourself believe something that you know to be false. So everything you believe, you think is true, but they're not necessarily true. Okay, so this is a famous quote from Senator Monahan from the Watergate trial. He said, whoops, you are entitled to your own opinions, but not to your own set of facts. So this is another way of saying that belief and truth are distinct. So we have our opinions because we believe that they're true. But just because we believe they're true doesn't make them true. Okay, more about beliefs. So beliefs are subjective. They're mind dependent. They don't just float around ownerless. So truth is mind independent. Beliefs are mind dependent. So that means beliefs need to have minds to have them in order to exist. So there can be no beliefs without minds. In contrast, there can be truth without mind. Philosophers, what they mean by beliefs is any little thing, little or small, that you take to be true. So belief can be used broadly. All the claims that a person would agree to, whether they are trivial or momentous. So you believe that February follows January. You believe that the chair you're sitting on is not made of cheese. You may believe that you're the smartest person in the room. That's especially true if you're the only person in the room. That you're in Nevada. Yeah, I'm smarter than this guy. I'm in Nevada. So these beliefs are all part of your belief structure. Okay, so when is a belief rational? So here's some just really general guidelines about when believing something is rational and when it's irrational. To get more detailed into this, you would need to take an epistemology class. So in philosophy, there's always deeper levels and exceptions. If you want to know about those exceptions, you can send me an email, but this is just really a rule of thumb. It's rational to believe something when the evidence supports it and the evidence is complete enough to draw a conclusion. It's rational to disbelieve something when the evidence is against it and it is complete enough to draw a conclusion. Finally, these aren't the only two options. You ought to suspend judgment if there's not enough evidence for something or if the evidence is neutral. So in my courses, so I taught this 5 times this week, this lecture, and we talked about our belief in ghosts. So ought you believe in ghosts? Should you disbelieve in ghosts? Or should you suspend judgment? So of course, each of us has access to different information and different evidence. So I talk to people in the class. And belief, this is a really helpful thing to remember, belief comes in degrees. So if you think something's impossible, then you would disbelieve it, and you would give it a probability of 0. So your degree of belief would be 0. If you knew something to be the case 100%, if you believed it with 100% certainty, you would be sure about it. So for example, I would assign a probability of 1 or 100% to my belief that I exist and I'm in this room. 0.5 is something you would assign to something that you don't believe is the case or you don't believe is not the case. So And this is suspending judgment. So for example, if you haven't thought much about ghosts, if you haven't, maybe you've never seen a ghost and you've taken science classes and your science teachers say there's no such thing as ghosts, but then on the other hand, you have friends that swear that they've seen ghosts, you might decide to suspend judgment. So this is, you would suspend judgment if there's evidence for it that counterbalances the evidence against, or if you just haven't thought about it. You'd suspend judgment. So I talked to people in the class, so some people swore that they talked to ghosts when they were kids and they saw ghosts, and they gave their credence in ghosts 75%, some gave it 40%. Other people said they didn't believe in ghosts. Other people said they thought ghosts were impossible, that there can be no such thing as a disembodied mind. So something that can think without a brain, without a physical brain. So some people believe that a brain is a necessary condition for having thoughts. So that would make it ghost impossible. Some people said they were 100% sure ghosts exists, and I think that that is not rational. So the only way you can be 100% sure that ghosts exist is that if you had a ghost sitting next to you at this moment, or that if you yourself were a ghost. So Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost could give himself 1 here. Okay. But for the rest of us, if you believe in ghosts, it'd be somewhere around here. Disbelieve over here. Okay. And again, I want to reiterate here, I'm not taking a stance on whether ghosts do or do not exist. It's just a useful way to assess how strongly you believe something or how strongly you disbelieve something. That direction. Okay. So here's a good rule of thumb for rationality of the rationality of believing. The strength of your conviction should be proportional to your evidence. The stronger your evidence for a proposition is, the stronger your belief should be in it. Or the stronger your evidence against a proposition is, the stronger your disbelief should be in it. So that's just a good rule of thumb for the rationality of belief. And people ought to, I think people would save themselves a lot of money if they applied this principle to their gambling in Las Vegas. Okay. So an important point to point out is that you can be completely rational and justified in believing something, and that belief could turn out to be false. So this is a principle called fallibilism. An example of an individual who was justified and rational in believing something but turned out to be wrong was Ptolemy. He had all sorts of evidence to believe that the sun orbited the earth. He made a detailed mathematical model of that was supported by empirical evidence. This was something like this was what his model looked like. He believed this, he had good evidence for it, but he turned out to be wrong. The earth actually orbits the sun, and all the other bodies orbit the sun.